Good morning, Anita. Thank you so much to you and the Decorex team for this opportunity and for creating this innovative platform. It's such a wonderful concept going digital with these talks. I think Decorex is really leading the way of the future. So today I'll be delving into some exciting thoughts around modular design in both furniture and housing and how I see it as fast becoming our new natural. So now let's explore where the future of modular might lead us. As Anita so aptly mentioned, the caption for today, people's needs change, nothing stays the same. Our houses, furniture, and lifestyles, I believe, should adapt as we do. In the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic and ensuing economic crisis, it does seem likely that we're going to have to fundamentally change in order to adapt to new situations, our conditions, and the environments in the future. Could modular homes and design be the way that more of us will be living going forward? COVID has certainly brought home a few insights, especially for me and many people that I know, of what's important for humans in general. The feeling of being loved, giving love, belonging to a community, gaining an improved sense of well-being through exercise and healthy eating, and then the long overdue excuse to work from home. Not only has COVID helped companies realize that efficient work and meetings can now be done from home, but it's also opened up the limitations of where we live and how we choose to live. All of a sudden, our dining rooms can now double up as a virtual boardroom table or our office desk. This has led so many people to look again at not only where they live, but also the way in which they live and how they want to use and optimize the space that surrounds them. How much of that space do we want to have to keep clean, for example, or pay off every month? Maybe we can make do with less space, which is more adaptable to our needs. So enter the prefab revolution. Together with rapid urbanization and industrialization, our population is not only growing, but the housing supply seems to fall short. Everyone is speaking about the housing crisis and looking towards sustainable construction methods for our future. Prefab modular construction, as you may or may not know, is the manufacture of buildings in a factory environment for assemblage on site. It's actually an idea as old as the Romans, whether utilizing partial prefab components or delivering complete assembled units on site. Prefab is known to save time and money. We only need to look at the flat-pack furniture industry to see the value in saving time and costs, whilst delivering high-quality products that can be acquired by more people. Prefab modular homes present several solutions to our ever-changing needs. Not only can they be built quickly, but they can be built in factories, thereby eliminating the need for building noise and cement runoff or other waste associated with brick and mortar building in residential areas. Because these homes are built according to standardized modular plans, it takes less time. Building procedures can be optimized while avoiding other delays that might normally be associated with building on site. I think most of us know who've worked on projects that there can always be delays, unknown, or just sort of they spring up at the last minute. With prefab, you have less of those issues. They're also often more affordable, and they include modern features such as Google Home, Apple Home, or Alexa paired with smart appliances, which we then combine with the Internet of Things. They're easy to run off grid and more efficient in terms of maintenance and running costs. Their smaller energy demands easily lend themselves to rooftop photovoltaics such as solar panels. Various modular options are starting to surface now in South Africa. It's quite an exciting realm to delve into, from converted shipping container houses to prefab units that are built on site. Then there are those that are built on trailer bases for easy transportation from one location to the next, without having to contend with building regulations for specifically zoned sites. The worldwide tiny house movement, I'm sure you've picked up on lately. With the Great Recession in 2007 and 2009, the tiny house movement started attracting much attention as it offered affordable, ecologically friendly housing, promoting financial prudence, self-sufficiency, shared community experiences, and a shift in consumerism-driven mindsets. Less space equals less stuff. Less is more, after all, as Ms. van der Rohe has been telling us for decades. The tiny house global architecture trend is still growing in the US, Canada, Australia, as well as New Zealand, and it's now starting to draw some serious attention in South Africa, with its simple alternative to living modularly and only using the amount of space one actually requires. Today, the Census Bureau of America quotes that actually 1 in 18 Americans already live in mobile-type homes that are pre-made, you guessed it, in factory environments. Let's look at millennials and centennials around the world, who are not only finding it more and more difficult to afford buying their first home, but they don't necessarily want the large homes their parents grew up in. As children leave home, the parents are often left with sprawling mansions that they no longer need, but have become accustomed to. The millennials have very different lifestyle requirements, on the other hand, and conventional suburbs fall short of meeting their cosmopolitan urban life and work ethic where they can walk and socialize in close vicinity to where they live. Bond and car repayments, insurance policies, credit card debt, these can all tie people into financial commitments for up to 30 years. When last did you look at your bond and how much you're paying off every month? Whereas well-designed tiny modular houses offer a cheaper entry to the property ladder, whilst paring down one's possessions and still enjoying a high level of luxury. After all, what millennial wants to live in the same house for 30 years or hold down a job that pays ever more and more in order to pay it off for 30 years? What if there was a new norm, a norm with more adaptability and freedom? What if we worked with architects and psychologists to build modular homes and furniture that are better suited towards the various real needs of the occupants? International furniture brands such as Vox already spend over a year researching and testing their new furniture designs to psychologically address the humans' changing needs and their lifestyle requirements. Their modular concepts allow us to build and rebuild our own furniture whilst choosing our own looks and finishes. What if we started building houses and furniture that change with us as our needs change? And while we're at it, we should also look at how this will help us gain financial freedom along the way. The new multifunctional space. Modular homes are usually optimized to allow for clever built-in storage, whilst designers are pushing the limits of their imaginations by considering dual-purpose and multifunctional furniture during different times of the day. Furniture now dresses for day or night by fulfilling the needs of our daily and nightly life. Most people don't use a bed during the day, so this bed can then double up as a couch during the day or slide underneath the stairs of the raised lounge floor, for example. Let's look at this next slide with the small studio apartment in Barbican in London. Here, a table or desk can fold down or extend further and double up for dining and work. A quick Google search relating to modular furniture will open up a world of creative design related to solving the problems of space and budget. In this image, you could have also seen that the bed would drop down onto the desk afterwards. Here we can see by minimizing the space we live in, our footprint is not only smaller, but our cleaning work is less. Our budget is now less extended and our freedom more realized. By owning less possessions, we're not only spending less money on unnecessary things, but we also have more time to enjoy what we do want. It creates an almost Zen-like sense of minimalism, such as this example of the Slate Cabin by Trias Architects, which is a writer's retreat in Wales. We do have changing needs. Flexible living modules or pods allow us to customize our living space according to these needs. You can add more or fewer modules or even join a bathroom, kitchen, and living space module together. When we are single and we want to live close to the city, we can live in a singular module in someone's garden, for example. Then once we've met someone and we want to live with them, we can extend the functionality of our singular module or extend with another module that allows for a separate office space. Once we're blessed with kids, we can extend even further with separate kids modules that are now all joined together with a bigger outside living area. When the kids are leaving the house, send the pod with them, rent it out, or simply sell it on. I can definitely see a new business opportunity, the second-hand marketplace for homes. Does rehome.com sound good to you? Here we can see the concept of garden offices. The lines are starting to blur regarding the limits of our lives. With COVID came work from home and not traveling to meetings or across the planet to visit expos and talks such as these. We've learned to use digital in new ways that have set us free. So now we can live and work anywhere, really. But small living is definitely not for everyone. And there's a lot to be said for beautiful, sprawling architectural masterpieces. Many people are starting to invest into smaller living spaces, though, at least for getaways, and some are building hybrid homes with modules built in the factory, while larger open spaces are built on site. According to a new market research report on modular construction, the global market size is projected to grow from an estimated US dollars of 92 billion in 2018 to 129 billion by 2023, at a compound annual growth rate of 7.1%. The report is named Modular Construction Market by Type, Material, User Sector, and Region, published by Markets and Markets. The developer market in South Africa has invested heavily in building more affordable housing options that are really tiny. Just in Cape Town alone, there are multiple micro apartment blocks springing up all over town. Look at the New Harry, the Westwood, one on Albert, Newlands Peak, Woodstock Apartments, Block Raw, the Pinnacle. Their pricing start at just under $1 million, but more likely ranges between 1 and 2 million for a 21 square meter to 32 square meter space. Many of these blocks are zoned for mixed use, which allows them to have retail spaces, co-working spaces, and general recreational areas and gyms, including Wi-Fi and housekeeping services. These buildings create an affordable work-play lifestyle, a sort of an instant urban village, one could say. Pictured here, one of the Pinnacle apartments, which is one of the smallest versions that someone could live in. But then what happens when we don't all need to, or want to for that matter, live in the city anymore? What if we want to live in the sprawling countryside where we can eat fresh food grown in our gardens and enjoy living in fresh air? With the insights that 2020 has brought us this far, the world is starting to pay more attention to what is really important in our lives. Not many people like being lonely or sitting in the office all day in front of a computer. Our bodies are actually talking to us, and the message is one of joy, laughter, and spending time in nature with family and loved ones. This will inspire the concept of the new villages of the future, where the urban age becomes less defined. People will become global citizens and live in any of a series of global village networks that provide access to the type of life they want to live. These villages will probably be built using modular housing units that can be rented, owned, or moved from one village or property to the next as the owner's needs change. These spaces are designed to work in communion with nature, where we humans once again become conscious custodians of the land that feed our souls, our hearts, and our creativity. Imagine living in a place where you have workshops, studios, and co-working spaces with views of the countryside and a fleet of cars available to your occasional necessary use. Fresh water, air, and food are abundant, and people actually know your name. A place to be genuinely free and creative, your modular home anywhere in the world. For more info on the villages of the future, please visit neosphere.org and look out for the launch of tinyhome.africa, where a collaboration of architects, designers, and furniture manufacturers can work together to bring more modular solutions to South Africa. Thank you. I wonder if there are any questions. Yes, we do. We have question number 1. How much would an entry-level modular home cost? Well, there are many different suppliers that are starting to come up with these designs, depending on how much luxury you would want within your home, whether you want it to be a smart home for living in permanently or more of a holiday retreat. Prices can start at, say, 300,000 to $500,000 to R1 million for a singular pod that can house 1 or 2 people. Really depends on your creativity and your budget, I would say. Thank you for the question. These are good questions. Question number 2, do you have any suggestions if one would like to learn more about modular design? If you want to become a designer yourself, a great way to learn is to actually play around on Google SketchUp. So you can start working with shapes and seeing how they can fit together to create more shapes. I think often in modular design, you're actually wanting to look at the negative space in comparison to the positive space. So the parts that are built up and the parts that are not built up. So if you're looking at furniture, for example, you'd be evaluating your space. If you're in a tiny apartment, for example, you'd look at how you actually live. How do I spend my day? That's the best way to learn about modular design. Because if I start analyzing, what do I do when I get up? Which space do I move to? Where do I spend the majority of my day? And how does my furniture suit me? How can I use it better? How can this fit into that thing? Could my dining room table, for example, slide into the cupboard behind me? Or could my desk fall down from the wall? I think it's all about having fun and exploring in which ways you can be creative to make better use of your space. After all, modular design is definitely about using your space. Thank you. There's also another question. Are these modules solar or electric? So different modules can be, like I was explaining before, you can use solar power. You can also connect to the mains. So depending on the location of where your modular home or unit would be, you can evaluate your surroundings to say, is there water supply? Is there electrical supply? Do I need to be completely off-grid? Or can I just plug and play once I get there? So obviously being completely off the grid is going to be more expensive because you'll need to buy solar systems, inverters, energy packs, batteries, and things that can give you the power that you need. And you'd have to be careful about how you use this power. So if you're going to be using a fridge together with a stove, you would probably be looking at using a convection stove instead of a normal stove, or you can connect a gas stove. But you're not going to be using washing machines and dryers all at the same time. So yeah, you do need to definitely look at what kind of electrical requirements you have and whether solar can satisfy that. But nowadays, there's so many improvements and so many new systems coming out. They're coming up with smaller, bigger battery systems that just give more for their punch. Thank you. Another question here is asking, how can one collaborate on tinyhome.africa? The tinyhome.africa portal should be going live later this month or next year, depending on time. We're looking at getting together quite a lot of architects, designers, furniture suppliers. We want to give a really nice platform to South Africans where they can find what they're looking for. There's some amazing design out there. There are brand new concepts being built as we speak, ready to go. You can also find the Facebook page and you can make contact there. This is a collaborative, co-creative project, and we'd love to have you on board. Another question, how are the module homes transported from one place to another? Okay, so once again, this also depends on what sort of modular home you're purchasing. If you're purchasing an entirely prefab unit, which is already kitted out with everything, it needs to go either on a trailer base or on the back of a truck. So depending on the size, you would be looking at a trailer base of no wider than, say, 2.5 meters by 7 meters long. In such a unit, you could easily create one module where 2 people could live permanently, or a module where 4 people could have a holiday over weekends or for a week or so, or even a month, writers' retreats. All sorts of different options are available. So yeah, you would need to have access for wheels, or otherwise the units can also be delivered by cranes. So you need to look at your accessibility of the location. We have another question. In terms of council approval, at which point does a tiny home or larger modular unit require council approval? Also, how keen are the authorities on approving these more unconventional designs? Yeah, so if you're putting up a tiny house, which is like a permanent residence and it's not on wheels, you do need council approval. My architect friends have advised me that Cape Town has recently changed its legislation so that if you are in the CBD, you're allowed to much more easily, and you're being encouraged to add additional accommodational options in your property. So it will not be difficult. If you're out on a regional area such as a farm, if you're using modules which are on wheels, you don't need extra approval because they're temporary modules. I trust that answers that question. You also have, remember, one more thing, remember you also have your different regions around South Africa. So there are different bylaws in various areas to do with the council approval. But the future is definitely moving towards giving more accommodation options within city environments, and then also making it more possible to travel with your modules into, as long as they're on wheels. Another question, as a modular homeowner, where in SA is sites for such small communities other than the standard security estates? That's a great question. So this is something that is not happening in South Africa yet, unless you're becoming part of a caravan park, which is not exactly what we as tiny home supporters have in mind. So in the US and in England and in Australia and New Zealand, they're definitely already starting with tiny house parks. So you could have, within a much smaller vicinity, sort of plots and locations where people can bring their tiny homes and join the community. So what you would have then is you would have external facilities such as laundry rooms or co-working stations, parks, swimming pools, sort of much more open areas which can be shared with your more immediate neighbors. So within South Africa, I think we have a way to go to still convince our authorities that this could be a very good solution to decentralization. We don't need to all live in the city, especially now that we can work from home. We can be sprawling out a little bit more into countrysides, and there could be land given or made available for purchase where these sort of modular housing estates could happen, not the old-fashioned way of estate living, but more in the sense of being able to grow your own food or have your studio workspace outside, and sharing spaces and duties with a community where we can all support each other more. I mean, you'll actually know who your neighbor is, and you might not have to do everything on your own anymore. So if I've got kids and my friends have got kids, we can take turns to cook dinner, or we could take turns. I could be growing the potatoes and you could be growing the tomatoes. It's definitely an eye-opener to think that we could be living in a way where we aren't so isolated, each one for their own, in a separatist mindset. I find is something of the past. What is the website of the Vox interior design you mentioned? Okay, so Vox Furniture is the brand that we distribute in South Africa. That's voxfurniture.co.za. We have catalogs there of all the different ranges. So I think I showed one of the ranges in my slide presentation of the Balance range, where you actually just build your own units. So you can build a shelf which is 5 tiers high, or you could build a desk which has got 2 tiers, or it can slide into the shelving unit, add as many boxes as you want. Some of them can have doors, some of them can be open, they can face forwards, they can be loose standing within the house. I mean, loose standing, they don't have to be against the wall. Many of the furniture items in the Vox ranges convert. So for example, in the baby range, you would have the cots and the compactums, which convert into toddler beds and dressers, which you can use forever. You've got modular shelving units, like in the Lorry range, where you can build your own office or studio as wide as you need by just using modules which are either 90 centimeters wide or 45 centimeters wide. You can add modules to the top, which extend them higher. You can add storage drawers to the bottom, and you can just start using your space a lot better. All the items are for sale on CLM Home.co.za, where we're now catering to the home and adult market. So students, apartment living, home interiors. There's some great solutions there. And we're looking to work with more South African designers as well, so we can do some exclusive ranges that are available on CLM Home. Last question, when will these communities become available in South Africa? As soon as we build them. So I foresee that it's going to take about 10 years for these things to start realizing. The right people need to come together so that we can work together and change the way that councils are working, the way that land use is being appropriated. We need to make the change, and we'll find the right people to work together. Please join us if you are so inclined. How long does it take to build a unit? Okay, so depending on what design you've gone with, it could take anything from three months, like two months to 3 months, depending on whether there's any customization or whether there's internal built-in furniture. So usually a tiny home module would include built-in furniture because everything is designed to fit snugly and well. Vox furniture can also work in these interiors because it's specifically designed to give you the additional storage options. So you can extend, if you want more storage space, for example, and less kitchen, you can just make your kitchen smaller, which will also be a module. So we're thinking in terms of pods here. We're thinking in terms of a prefab bathroom pod, which is something that is made in a factory. Your tiling and your shower and all the plumbing is already in, and it literally slots into the module of the house. Or it can be something that slots into a block of apartments. You can have your kitchen modules where you can say, this is a basic kitchen, that's a wider kitchen. I want to go for this option because I'm not going to use it often, or I don't really like cooking, or I'm going to go for the full option, which has a full height fridge together with a proper hob that's got enough cooking hobs for me, for example. So yeah, depending on what all goes into your tiny house or your module, the building time will change. But yeah, for just a frame, for something that you would want to populate yourself, I would say 4 to 6 weeks or 4 to 8 weeks would be a realistic sort of time frame, which is quite amazing when you think that brick and mortar houses take sometimes years. How will the City of Cape Town deal with potential infrastructure overload if modulars on wheels are deemed temporary structures? Do they envision them to be off-grid? So yeah, definitely. If you're wanting to set up these new villages, they would have to be off-grid. It's like I was saying earlier, it'll definitely not just be the City of Cape Town. It'll be every region and council in South Africa that would need to start thinking in new ways, and we would have to go and meet with them and speak to them to explain what the concepts are, why we believe that it's more important for us to be able to have more space and not live so on top of each other. There are many methods to live on this planet without having to use municipal sewer lines or without being connected to the main grid. We don't need to be connected to power grids, which are often failing or not available. We can be self-sustainable. We have a lot of natural energy in South Africa. We have a lot of sunshine. We have wind power. We have solar power. It really is not a problem to be off-grid. I think it's more important for us to change the thinking around legislation and how the use of land is allocated. Do you have a group or details for contact to collaborate with you for future projects? Yes, you can. You're welcome to email me directly at Yulande, Yulande, at clmhome.co.za, or you can reach us via Tiny Home Africa on the Facebook page or on the website, which will be live later this year. You can also visit nearsphere.org. I collaborate on the concepts there. You can send us an email, you can sign up for the newsletter, and you can follow us on social media.